I'm sure that you've heard that one of the benefits of being tall is that you can eat whatever you want or however much you want, which isn't entirely true, but the idea is that if you gain weight, it won't show as much. Now, that part may have some truth to it because the weight has more room to distribute, causing many of us to maintain that slim appearance. However, when we start talking about actual numbers, this perception almost shatters. Maybe you hear your friends talking about how they're 120 or 130 pounds, but you're maybe at 180, 190. And that's when the comparison starts. You may wonder why you weigh so much more than your friends and ask if you should lose some weight. And the truth is, many of us have been through this before and even still go through this. So today's episode may be a little bit triggering, but we're going to have a conversation around weight as a tall woman and how comparisons and labels around weight affect our mental health. So without further ado, let's get into it. Good morning, everybody. You are currently listening to A Tall Girls podcast, hosted by a tall girl named India. I hope everyone who's tuning in today is doing super fantastic. Before I get into this episode, I do want to say, make sure you're following me on my socials at A Tall Girls podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest so that you can stay up to date on all of the latest podcast episodes and catch a glimpse of my everyday life. Also, feel free to leave me a review and let me know how tall you are. I'm genuinely curious. I also have a monthly newsletter. Make sure you subscribe to that. Everything is going to be linked in the description. Again, super early in this episode, I do want to note that we are going to be talking about weight. And I know that topic and talking about numbers on a scale and so forth can be triggering for some people. So please do not hesitate to click off of this episode and go listen to the literal hundreds of other episodes that I have out there. Check out my socials. I post almost daily. I try to post almost daily on those. My newsletter, whatever it may be, but if this is something that's very uncomfortable for you, I do not want you to have to sit through this. Additionally, I'm going to touch very lightly on eating disorders towards the end of this episode as well. So if you also find that triggering or if you've had a past with that and you just don't want to revisit that, again, check out one of my other episodes. Do not tune into this one. And then lastly, disclaimer, I'm not a health professional. This is literally just general education, but also opinionated / experiences from other people. Now to get started, the fitness industry isn't always a safe space for tall women. Well, more so the toxic side, the side that promotes over-exercising, under-eating, and just being the most shredded, smallest version of yourself. Well, honestly, that's dangerous for anyone. This one tall creator actually shares her thoughts and experience.
Since when is someone who is 175 pounds of muscle, like, yeah, I have body fat, but of muscle, that is 5'9", is considered a bigger body? Since when is that okay? Since when is that okay? I'm like tired of keeping silent about this. Why am I considered the bigger body? Brands need to be showcasing more regular looking humans. I don't get used for photo shoots, and I know why. It's because I'm tall and I look bigger on camera because I'm tall, and I am a normal looking human being because I'm not shredded all the time, because that's not healthy. Despite what you see on social media, that is extremely unhealthy. If you see someone that is shredded 24/7, it's probably because they have an eating disorder, or it's probably because they overexercise. Because that's what I looked like when I did that also. And it's not sustainable. And you guys know that my whole approach to fitness is sustainable, healthy lifestyle. And I'm so sick of seeing this narrative where everyone needs to be the smallest version of themselves. It does not need to be that way. It does not need to be that way. And the fitness industry lately has been glorifying being the smallest version of yourself, and I am tired of it. Like, I'm not a big person, I'm just tall. Like, I am a healthy body fat. Like, I am a good weight for my height and muscle mass. Like, I feel very healthy and I feel confident. If I wasn't on social media, as soon as I log on to social media, confidence out the window. Everyone's posting all the time, skinny, be the smallest version of yourself, and I'm sick of it.
Now, under this video, she did share in the comment section that she filmed this video after a photo shoot with Alpha Elite, which is a premium fitness brand. And she is apparently a model of this brand. And she said that she wasn't showcased, or like her pictures weren't posted maybe on the website, maybe on social media or wherever, because she has a bigger body. And she did state in the video that she is 5'9" and I think 170 something pounds. And interestingly enough, under that comment that, she provided context for, another girly actually responded to that comment saying she was flown out for a photo shoot but never saw the brand post a photo of her. And she kind of implied that maybe they preferred somebody who wasn't as muscular as her. And this really does go to show how brands, big brands, play a huge role in what's considered the quote unquote ideal body type, especially when it comes to women. Very often, it seems as though they're choosing women with very specific and very similar features. I don't know. I feel like sometimes when you scroll through the clothing section, the women's clothing section of some of these brands' websites, the women look the same. The variety just isn't there. And then seeing those two comments, it almost seems as though the women who would actually add that diversity, that body type or whatever diversity, they seem to be excluded. Of course, this is not all brands, but for some, this probably is the case. Anyways, back to the point of this episode and the video that I just played. Tall women are not supposed to be 100 pounds, not 110, maybe not even 120. A smaller number on the scale does not equate to a strong, healthy body for a tall woman. So in the video that I played earlier, the girlie, she is 5'9" and she's like 175 pounds. And now as we look through more comments under this video, there's a 5'11" girlie who said that she is 185 pounds and often referred to as plus size, but in the picture that she actually attached with this comment, she looks very slim. Now there's another girlie, she says that she is 5'8" and 180 pounds of muscle, and she says that every doctor told her to lose weight. This is the scary part because I am a big advocate for listening to your doctor, listening to the professionals who actually went and got degrees to be able to do what they have to do. But at the same time, it's always kind of like when do you question, do you question if they're always right in what they say? I don't know. I mean, just as an example, there are a lot of people who share their stories of having a chronic illness, especially women who share their stories of having a chronic illness online. And they talk about how when they presented their symptoms to doctors or professionals or whoever, a lot of them have dismissed their symptoms or just said, oh, maybe they're faking it, or oh, it's like anxiety or like mental health or whatever. And then after years and years and years of having to advocate for themselves, and going from doctor to doctor, professional to professional, they finally found out that they had a diagnosis of a literal chronic illness that will impact them for the rest of their lives. It was that serious, but the previous doctors have basically dismissed their symptoms or said it was nothing. So there is that little tiny 0.5% part of me that's kind of like, just got to take it case by case and so forth and do your own research and do what works best for you and maybe consider multiple professional opinions rather than just one. Again, I'm just a tall girly with a podcast advocating for the tall girls and, speaking about tall girl topics. I'm not a professional, okay? Anyways, these taller women who maybe are gym girlies or are on the slimmer side or whatever, they're in the 170s, 180s. I've also seen some comments about 190s, even 200, and they've been told that they are plus size. It's been implied that they're overweight. This isn't just like a coincidence or like a few here, few there, or a few random cases. Like, this is a thing. Let's listen to these stories.
Something that pisses me off is how tall women who aren't built like Victoria's Secret, like supermodels from the early 2000s, their whole life get like horrendously, horrifically bullied. Like, listen to me. My grandma, my mother, myself, my sister, who's in 5th grade, my 5th grade sister gets bullied for being fat, like, every day, and she's not even fat. Like, my whole, up until, honestly, even still, people still say I'm fat, but I don't have a fat body type. I go to the gym, like, at least once a day, every day. I'm, like, active. I do, like, sports, and I can't escape the fat thing because I'm tall and I'm not super skinny, and because of the way I'm built, I am seen as fat, and I will always be fat, and there's nothing I can do to change it.
Her weight is 150 pounds. I've never seen that heavy of a cheerleader.
Right now, you're too heavy, perhaps, for the uniform.
In Dallas, 150 pounds is not just a number. It is practically an eviction notice. In reality, Denisha is nearly 6 feet tall. Medically speaking, she is actually considered very thin. But in the world of the DCC, being healthy does not mean you make the cut. Even a single extra pound looks like visual pollution on camera.
And I feel like a lot of people wouldn't judge a tall woman's weight or see it the way that they do if they didn't hear the actual number, because it's almost like when they actually look at the tall woman on the outside, they don't think of her as overweight or plus size. But when they hear that number of like 180, 190, 200, they're like, oh, that's not, you don't look like you weigh that much. What's actually crazy is that tall women will share their weight and people will not believe them at first. Like they actually have to convince the person, yeah, I actually weigh that much. And that's largely because people judge based on body type or body shape without considering other factors. Let's listen to these.
If you're tall, please tell me how many times you've had to convince people of your weight. People don't believe me when I tell them the weight that I am. I'm 5'10" and I am tall. Like, if you're 5'5", 5'6", you're not tall. I'm tall. And I'm not even tall. There are tall people, right? I just have to spend so much time convincing people I'm the weight that I am. Because when I tell people, like, at the start of the year I wanted to lose 5 to 6 stone, they're like, oh my God, that's so much weight. I'm like, no, hun, that's not that much weight for me because I'm way more.
And this guy commented being like, anything above 130 pounds is unacceptable.
130 pounds. The only way a woman should weigh under 130 pounds and be healthy is if they're like under 5 feet tall. I mean, maybe if you're like 5'2" and below, but like if you are prioritizing your health, you're lifting weights, taking care of yourself, you're not going to weigh 130 pounds. Like realistically, women are going to weigh 150, 170, 180 pounds if they're taking care of themselves. One of my favorite trends is when women like use sounds like this and then they show like what their physique looks like and they're like 5'8", 170 pounds. And like all the men in the comments are like, oh my gosh, like she looks so good. And then they think, oh, you weigh 180 pounds? Oh, I thought you were 130. Like it's just like mind boggling to me when a lot of guys like don't understand what weight actually looks like on a woman, because like it's totally obvious that they have no idea what they're talking about. And she even brings this up at the beginning of the video where like men guess that she weighs 150 pounds and she's more than that, but like how they don't understand like what weight looks like on a woman.
And then when people hear numbers like 150, 160, even like 200 on taller women, that's when the labels come into play, like plus sized, overweight, or even big. Now, there's nothing wrong with plus size. I especially feel like that more so has to do with clothing. And then overweight has more to do with health rather than appearance. And with that, we also have to think about bone density, body composition, how your weight is distributed. But big, that label can be a bit tricky. I'm actually curious to know how many tall women have been called big at some point in their lives. I can't see y'all right now, but I'm imagining that some people are raising their hands or nodding their head yes. But I feel like some tall women see it as an insult, like people are implying that they're overweight or man-like, whereas others see nothing wrong with it because people are just noticing that they have a larger body. Now back to the first video that I played earlier in this episode. She actually mentioned that she was referred to as having a bigger body, maybe because of her height and weight. And then there was actually an interesting comment in response to that saying, what's the problem with being large anyways? One of the biggest problems is demonizing large to begin with. There's literally nothing wrong with being a large or bigger person. Big/large does not equate to fat or unhealthy, so what's the issue? And honestly, that's a very valid point. I feel like big can be viewed as a nicer way of saying fat or overweight. But there are also times where big also just simply means that. Big, large, sometimes huge, even though I don't really like the term huge when we're talking about a person. I just think that overall, in general, as women, we see big as an insult because it comes again from, societal views and the fact that it's like almost ingrained in us that women are supposed to be petite or quote unquote skinny to be accepted or to be considered attractive. However, as tall women, we may not necessarily fit into that mold, you know? And so being called big is kind of a reminder of that. And, you know, being called these labels like big, large, huge, or even just comparing your weight to your shorter friend's weight, that can lead to eating disorders. Actually, many tall women on Reddit have shared that they've developed eating disorders in an attempt to fit in with, you know, the smaller girlies and to be perceived as more feminine, or to just disappear so they can stop taking up as much space. They would use laxatives or just stop eating overall to lose a ton of weight so that they wouldn't be seen as big, large, heavy, or so they can be the same weight as their shorter friends or maybe their favorite influencer, especially with the, you know, fitness influencers, them talking about their weight, but they don't put their height on the screen. So they'll say, yeah, I'm 120 pounds, 135 pounds, 110 pounds, and just don't include the fact that they're 5'2". I actually did an episode on tall women don't need to eat less, and, you know, the whole issue with tall women following or listening to shorter fitness influencers on the app. Stuff like that can literally, you know, affect their mental health, make them feel as though they need to be smaller, they're too heavy, they need, in order to look like that woman, they have to lose weight and be the same weight as that woman, and that leads to eating disorders. That can lead to an eating disorder. I don't know, it's just very disheartening. It's also very scary. And that's why it's so important to have conversations like these, to say that a number on a scale does not necessarily equate to overall health or being healthy. That 190 pounds on a tall woman is going to look so different than 190 pounds on a shorter woman. Or even 190 pounds on one tall woman is going to look different than 190 pounds on another tall woman. Please listen to your body. Eat those tacos. I don't know why I'm bringing up tacos. I think it's because I'm supposed to be going out for tacos with a tall group tonight. Tell people tacos, period. Can you tell I'm excited for tacos? Eat, eat. Yes, please listen to your body. Eat. If you're eating more than your shorter friends, it's actually how it's supposed to be, because you actually burn more calories than they do because you have more weight. And that's just in general. That not necessarily considering like fitness and other types of physical activity that you may do. And it's very, very important to stand up for yourself. If someone is calling you big, large, huge, whatever it may be, and you don't like that and that's triggering to you, tell them. Say, hey, I don't appreciate you calling me that. That is rude, or that makes me feel this type of way. Please be careful, or just think about the words that you use before, you know, you actually say it. And if it's a stranger, that's one thing, because you'll literally never see them again. And strangers are just whatever, stranger danger. But if it's like a friend or a family member or a colleague and they care about you, then they will be more careful in the future, in the long run. And if they aren't and they continue using those words, they don't care. They don't have your best interests at heart. And again, if the topic of weight is triggering for you, and you know you're in a group of people, a group of other women, and they're talking about weight and you don't want to talk about it, then just say, I'm not comfortable with this conversation right now, and hopefully they move on to a different subject. Just know that yes, the topic of weight is tricky because it's so unique to every single person. It even comes down to your genetics, and that's like 1 in a trillion. You know, everybody has a different unique set of genes and how that affects them. Listen to your doctor. If you have a gut feeling that something's a bit off, go to another professional. When you're hungry, eat food, please, especially your protein and veggies. Thank you. And remind yourself that a healthy body and a healthy weight is not defined by a number on a scale. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Of course, as always, feel free to hit me up on my socials and let me know what you thought about this episode. Are you a tall woman listening right now and you've struggled with the topic of weight? Feel free to share your stories in the comments. This is supposed to be, you know, this podcast is meant to build community and share our shared experiences. Yes, that's the phrase. to be able to share our experiences in a safe space, and this is the place to do it. So share your thoughts, share your experiences and stories, if you're comfortable, of course, in the comments, or you could even send me a private DM and we could talk about it on my socials. The link for that's going to be in the description. And yeah, until then, I will catch y'all in the next one. Good night and goodbye.